Glen Cove, New York, the formative years. My earliest recollections are living in a very small apartment, a one-bedroom apartment, and that was to house my dad, my mom, my brother, and myself. And I slept in the bedroom with my parents. My brother slept in a little alcove, which was probably meant to be some sort of closet, but was enough room for a squishy little single bed, and he slept there. I grew up with an affinity for classical music between my mother, who was a glorious soprano, who sang while she did her chores, and she did all these wonderful arias and, like just beautiful, beautiful tunes, Peer Gynt, just lovely things. And when my father would come home from working in the laundry, he would play on his harmonica for me. I remember this from my crib distinctly, both of these things, my mom singing and my dad playing. And my dad would play on the harmonica. I have his harmonica. He'd play on his harmonica, and he would play like these most rousing, wonderful operatic pieces. And that's how I went to sleep at night, was with this music from my father's harmonica. And I would spend my days with this music from my mom, or this music from the recordings. And it was just incredibly uplifting to me. And that was the fodder that I grew up with. And that's truly what I fed off of. And that has had the strongest impact on me in my entire life. The piano. When I was 6 years old, my parents got me my first piano, and then I promise you it was game over. It was all I wanted to do, really. I loved it so much. I loved my lessons. I loved practicing. Never had to be told to go and practice at all. I loved everything about it except performing. I was awfully young when I first started performing, and I was very shy. And I certainly did not like being the center of attention, I can tell you that much. But after a while, I found that when I was on stage, that I could lose myself in the music, whether it was singing or playing the piano, and the audience virtually disappeared. And eventually, I came to a place with it where being on stage was the place where I could concentrate most fully, because I wasn't being interrupted by, like I was at home, by maybe the telephone ringing or being called away to dinner or something like that. And it turned out that I started to feel that it was only on stage where I could be my true, authentic self. Epiphany. So I had been singing, and I'd been playing the piano, and doing the other things that kids do. And then one day, after school, my mom had the television on, which she often did. There would be movies that were played in the late afternoon, called the evening show, I think. And I would come in and out of the living room and maybe catch a little bit of it or whatever. But, and they were interesting enough. I liked movies just fine. But they didn't really have anything hold on me. But one day, I happened to be in the living room for a scene, actually, which turned out to be on the waterfront, and it was Marlon Brando. And I was absolutely mesmerized. And I felt, as I was watching him, there was just something about what he was doing. The way he talked, the way he moved his mouth, I don't know. Suddenly, I just felt like an epiphany. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I ran into the kitchen, where my mom was preparing dinner, and told her I was just so excited, and I thought she would be too, because finally I could answer that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I told her I know what I want to do. I want to be an actor. She wasn't as excited as I was about the prospect. And plus, I was pretty young, and there was nothing going on. I didn't know how to get from here to there, and plus, I never thought about it as acting as a child. I only thought about when I grow up. That's what I want to do. But I was very serious about it. It really, really was on my mind all the time. And from that point on in, I made a point of watching those movies, but watching them in a very different way. I started really studying what the actors were doing, and I would go off to my room afterwards and reenact some of the scenes. It didn't matter whether it was a male or a female. It was just trying to capture that something that they had done, whatever it was, that thought that had passed through their head before they spoke. I worked at it really quite diligently for quite a few years because I never actually got to do any acting until I was considerably older.